Hey everyone, it is Izuro Senpai here, and today we are doing another What If, and as you guys probably already know, it is what if Natsu had Fire and Iron Dragon Slayer magic. But before we get into the video, I would like to say something. Thank you, Muffin, for letting me know the name of the guy that got turned into an ape, the snow ape. I believe you pronounce it as Makano, I believe is how it's pronounced. Hopefully I said that right, but thank you, Muffin. Now, let's get on with the video. Last time where we left off, Natsu just left the Fairy Tale Guild and was about to head out of town to go find a girl. He actually does not know the name of this girl because he didn't ask or get told. He just got told it is a wind user that is a dragon slayer just like him. So he's off on his journey to go find this girl, and as you all know, it is Wendy. Of course, remember, she is aged up to Natsu's age. So yeah. As Natsu's walking through the town, about to leave, he's looking around, and he's like, I can't let any of these people die. I have to protect them, as he's thinking that, and he wants to make sure everyone is okay, because everyone in that whole town there is like family to him. Even if he doesn't know some of them, he still sees them as family. Because the town and the Fairy Tale Guild are the only people he's ever seen as family. At least that he remembers. Oh, and the Iron Dragon Slayer. That's all he remembers. So as he leaves the village, he's walking about, we'll say that this guild he has to go to is really far away. So we'll say it's a day time skip. And he's just walking through the forest. As he's walking, and he sees a bunch of people walking together. As he looks at them at first, he's about to walk over to go say hi and ask for more directions because he got a little bit lost. But he stopped in his tracks when he noticed that there were a few children, men, and women that were tied, with their hands were tied, and they were all tied up together, and they were walking, like, you know, a rope that goes along and ties them up, and it's like a line, you know, like that. And he's like, what the heck? So he crouches down to make sure no one can see him, and as he's looking, he's like, what are these people doing? Why? So he doesn't engage right away because he's trying to figure out what's going on. He wants to make sure that the people that are, the people that are chained up with the ropes aren't, if they're good or bad. So he's just watching. And as he's watching, he just follows them. He does know he has to get to that he has to get to that guild, and I can't remember what guild. Actually, I'll look up what guild Wendy's in, so give me a sec. He knows that he has to get to the Kate Shelter Guild to go find this Dragon Slayer, this Wind Dragon Slayer, as wind is the only weakness to this monstrosity that's going to be coming, and they don't know any other wind users other than these two, which are Mystigan and this girl. So as he's trailing these people, they stop to set up camp as it reaches nightfall, and he's watching and watching. About an hour later, one of the men go into where the prisoners are. They grab one of the women and just take them and throw them to the ground. And as he sees this, he's thinking to himself, even if these people might be bad, which I don't think they are, that's no way to treat them. As he walks out, and he says, hey, what are you guys doing? As the man that threw the woman on the ground looks over at Natsu, And he says, so we have a hero, huh? Hey, guys! We got a little hero on our hands! As all the wizards and people that are there that can fight come out. And they're all surrounding Natsu, as there are about 20 of them. And these are not just weak people. They are pretty strong. Not, like, amazingly strong, but they're still strong, nonetheless. As Natsu goes over to the woman, as the guy is about 5 feet away from her, and helps her up. And he says, are these prisoners of yours actually bad, or are you just holding them hostage or something? As the man looks at him, he says, so, you're a clueless little idiot that just came out here and decided to try to ruin our fun. And you have no clue what's going on, huh? Let's just say, slave trading. We trade people that we find for money. And not just money, other things too, but we don't need to get into that. Cause guess what? You're about to be dead in a few seconds anyways. As the man charges at Natsu with a bound sword, which basically means it's a magic sword basically, that he like summoned basically, as he charges at him with it. And this thing, it absorbs mana when it hits, or not mana, but you know, like magic power. And as it's about to hit Natsu pulls back and picks up the woman bride style, and he says, you people disgust me. I will make sure all of you pay. As he like knows that this is wrong, and he figures out they're a dark guild, and we'll say they're a dark. I'm gonna come up with a random name. They're a dark guild, and they're called Black Desert. And he's like, so, which dark guild are you, huh? I can tell you are a dark guild, huh? And they're like, oh, so you noticed. As he lifts up his sleeve on his shoulder to show a desert with black sand with the black sun over it. And he says, oh, I forgot what I called him. Oh, how did I? Oh, yeah, Black Desert. As he says, we are the Black Desert. And we will kill you. As Natsu sets the girl down and tells her to get behind him as the people are trying to surround him. But Natsu, before setting her down, actually jumps away towards the cage where all the people are and sets her down and tells her to stay there. As he walks forward towards everyone that is in the Black Desert Guild, and he says, huh, so, looks like we're going against guild, huh? As everyone's confused, and they're like, what do you mean, guild against guild? And Natsu lifts up his sleeve on his shoulder, and he says, I'm a member of Fairy Tale, and you're gonna pay for what you've done here today. I'm gonna make sure that these people get out of here safely. And you'll not go to jail for a long time. As he jumps at them with his fire and uses a dragon flame fist to punch one of the guys away. And everyone's like, it's flame magic! As they bring out users water magic, and there's 3 of them as they try to attack Natsu. And there's another water magic user that comes out, and she says this isn't any regular fire mage, as she looks at him with a death glare and says, he's a dragon slayer. As everyone's shocked because they know the tales of the Dragon Slayer. And they're like, a Dragon Slayer, huh? As some of them are a bit worried now. And she's like, she's just like me. So, Now, I will kill you, and you're going to submit to me. Actually, no, I'm not gonna kill you. I'll, beat you to a pulp. Make sure you can't use your magic for a bit. Tie you up, and then sell you on the slave market. You look like you could do some work for some people, so you must be worth a lot. Especially since you work with Fairy Tale. Sorry if my girl voice sounds a little bit weird, my throat's kind of hurting. Cause you're with Fairy Tale. Cause you're with Fairy Tale. That doesn't sound right. Cause you're with Fairy Tale. Cause you're with I'm trying, you guys. Cause you're with Fairy Tale, I will make sure that you are going to go up on the market for a lot of money. As she charges at him with a water dragon slayer fist, tries to punch him, and Natsu goes back and says, What do you mean you're like me?" As he demands to know, and she's like, "Are you an idiot? I'm a water dragon slayer." Even though I don't know if there's actual water dragon slayers, I'm making that up. As Natsu, he's like, "Well, of course, it has to be water." As the woman, the dragon slayer woman, says, "Well, yes, I know that water is a natural weakness to fire." And Natsu smiles and he says, "Well, you know something? If my flames become hot enough, then they'll disintegrate your water and evaporate it into the air." And she's like, "Huh, as your fire could ever get that hot." As she shoots blasts of water at him, as he dodges and dodges, because he knows if he gets hit by it, he's gonna not be able to use his fire. As then he uses his iron and fire at the same time, making his gray fire. And she's like, "What the heck is that?" As she dodges that fire, and she's like, "That wasn't just fire magic, was it? There was something else about it." As she's out of breath. And Natsu's like, "I ain't just a fire dragon slayer. I'm also the iron." And as she is shocked, and she's like, "Huh, I've never heard of a dragon slayer having two elements of a dragon. If I catch you, you'll be worth even more money than I thought. 'Cause I could chop off the metal off your body after you make it, and they could use it to sell." And she laughs maniacally and charges at Natsu again, as she has the other water mages shoot more water at Natsu. It hits Natsu, and he's like, "Crap, crap, crap," as he starts dodging even more. As he's like, "I can't fight this girl, I'll lose." So he knows he'll lose. So what he does is he just takes his metal and shoots it out towards her, as he uses his fire, because he's going to push beyond his limits to use his fire, even though it could come at a cost of not being able to use his fire for a bit. Sorry. As he does that and traps her in his metal hardening, and liquid metal capture, liquid. I don't know what I called it again. Give me a split second here. Slicer, no, that's not it. Manipulation, no. Structuring, no. Oh yeah, metal hardening. As he uses metal hardening on her, trapping her, and he's like, "Well, I know I can't beat you, so I'm just gonna beat these other guys and get out of here and take these guys with me." As he does, and he takes out all the other mages. First the water mages, and then all the rest. After he does that, he runs over to the captured people, and he undoes the lock by smashing it, because he didn't know where the keys were, and he did not want to take the time to looking look and have a chance of that girl breaking out. As he's like, everyone, you gotta get out of here. Head over to that carriage over there. As they all head over there and get in the carriage. As Natsu gets in the front and he's like, oh no. And by the way, I'm just saying, Godspeed, the guy that creates my thumbnails, suggested that I should do his motion sickness still, which actually I should do. So he's not going to be able to control the carriage, as he turns around and says, hey, do you think one of you guys can operate this carriage for me? As they're like, why? And he's like, I have really, really, really bad motion sickness. And if I drive, don't expect much except going off of a cliff. As they're like, yeah. As one of the men come up front and take the reins. As Natsu, he sits in the front and he says, you know, I'll stay up front to be sure that if anyone attacks, I'll still be able to help you guys. And the man looks at him and says, thank you for saving us. We're really grateful, and we're in your debt. So if you ever need a favor, just shout out to us. And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. As the man looks at him and says, so I'm guessing you were heading somewhere, weren't you? And Natsu looks at him and says, well, yeah, I was heading to the... I forgot the name again. Give me a split second here. I was heading to the Kate Shelter Guild to meet up with another dragon slayer that I need to meet up with. As the man looks at him and says, oh, we can bring you there if you want, considering you can't control the carriage. We could stop by there, considering you did this to us. It won't be the favor that we owe you, but it's the least we can do before we get that favor done for you. And she's like, yeah, thanks, I would actually like that. As he says, actually, I'm gonna go in the back because I need to make sure I have a side to puke off of a few times, because that's gonna happen. Sorry. So he gets in the back and he's like, the older guy, he's like, oh my goodness. I'm happy he went in the back. I'm happy he went in the back. I don't want to smell that puke, is what he's thinking. Here, I'm gonna use this for the man's voice. It sounds a little bit weird, but I'm going to use it anyways. It might sound weird, but whatever. Okay, but with Natsu in the back. As he climbs in the back, everyone's looking at him, and he sits down, and one of the children go over to him, and they ask, Mister, why did you help us? As Natsu's like, what do you mean, why did I help you? Well, there were a bunch of other people that passed by us, and they knew that we were trapped, but they did nothing. They just walked away. As this angered Natsu, he says, people like that are the reason why people like the people that captured you are here. Because no one decides to do anything about them. And Natsu looks at the kid and says, listen, kid. If you ever see someone in trouble, when you're older, not now because you might just get in the way, but if you see someone in trouble, you need to do something about it and help them. As a boy looks at him and says, yeah, I'll do that. As they're going, and one of the women look at him and asks, so, why did you help us exactly? I get that you wanted to be nice and all, but you had to have more of a reason. You had to have more of a reason than that, right? As he looks at her and says, nah. Only real reason is I wanted to help. And works out. As Natsu is, like, in his voice, like, it works out, you know, like that. because they are moving now, and he's having trouble talking as he's puking sometimes. And she's like, "Are you okay? You've puked 3 times, and it hasn't even been 2 hours." And he looks at her and he says, "Yeah, I'll be fine. Just motion sickness. But it's the fastest way to get where I need to go, so it works out for me, even though it's a pain." As he pukes some more off the side. As a woman says, "Oh, okay, I'll leave you alone to whatever you're doing," as she looks away. And about 6 days later, he reaches the town that the guild is in. As he gets out of the carriage, and he's like, "Finally! I cannot puke. I've been puking for days. Oh, I need to get something to eat. I puked up everything I ate." As before he leaves, he turns around and bows and says, "Thank you for the ride." As the man in the front says, "Don't worry about it. You helped us, and that, least we can do before we return that favor of whatever you need. But if you ever need us, we will be in Cauliflower, the town." This random town I made up. And she's like, "Yeah, thanks. If you guys ever need to talk to me or ask any questions, I'll be at the fairy tale. Usually." As he walks over to the wagon and looks inside and looks at the boy that asked him the question earlier about why he helped them. And he looks at the boy and he says, "Hey, boy. Hey, boy." And the boy turns over and says, "Yes, mister?" He says, "Hey, if you want to become a wizard someday, you should come to Fairy Tale." As the boy's like, "Fairy Tale?" "It's a guild. We're like family there. It's where it's the place I go to. If you ever need me, I'll be there. If anything ever happens, get the Fairy Tale." As something will be happening with these people later, because I want this boy to be something, and you guys will see later in the series. Some of you might know what I'm doing, but some might not. But I'm not going to tell you, so I'm not going to spoil it. Just something's going to happen. As they leave, and Natsu walks into the town. As he's looking around, and he is getting some weird looks from some people because he isn't from around there. So his clothes are a little bit different from everyone else's there. And he has pink hair with black tips. So everyone is kind of avoiding him. And he notices this. He's like, "Of course. I hate when I go to different places and people avoid me." But he's like, "Well, nothing can be done about it." As he continues walking as he reaches the guild. And he goes up to it. As he's about to knock on the door, he gets stopped by someone that grabs his hand and says, "What are you doing, huh? What do you think you're doing here?" As the tall man looks down at Natsu, and Natsu's like, "Oh, I'm here to find some girl that I was told to come find." As the man is like, "Who is it? Why do you need her?" And he's like, "Oh, crap. I never got her name or even what she looked like." As Natsu's like, "Oh, no, I'm in trouble now." And the man looks down and says, "Maybe I can help you, but try anything funny when I let you in, and I'll throw you right out." As he's like, "Yeah, I wasn't planning on doing anything funny anyways." And he asks before you go in, "What do you need her for anyways?" As Natsu looks at him and says, "Well, I can't say out here. It could cause a little bit of a panic, as there are some citizens around." And he's like, "So it's important business." As Natsu says, "Yes, it's I'm actually a fairy tale wizard, and I've come here to find someone that might be able to help our situation. And the man's like, what do you think? Why do you think we would help you? We would need some kind of good reason, because we haven't had the best thing with fairy tale before with some guy called Gray that came to our town once and accidentally destroyed some of it. And she's like, sorry about that, but all the people in fairy tale are like that, including me. But I won't attack anyone, just so you know. The only reason I would ever attack someone here is if they attack me. As the man looks at him and says, well, if someone attacks you, you have the right to beat them up, but please don't destroy anything, kid, okay? Not just like, kid? I'm like, I think he was 14, yeah. He's like, I'm like 14! And the man looks down and says, I'm 32. You're a kid. And she's like, yeah, okay. As Natsu doesn't have his all fierce personality of, oh yeah, you know. He doesn't always do that when someone's taller than him, but because he has this weird feeling of, like, stay away from taller people than him, you know? Natsu's pretty tall, this guy's like 6'7". He's only like, Natsu's in this one is only like 5 foot, 5'10". So he's pretty tall. He's usually taller than everyone else, but not this guy. As they walk in to the guild, and everyone turns and sees them, and one of the people run up to him, the guild member that's letting Natsu in, and we'll say the guild member's name that brought Natsu in. We'll just call him Ekil, okay? Just gonna call him Egil, something I can remember, otherwise I'm gonna forget it. As one of the other guild members runs up to Egil and asks, hey, who's this kid with you? As he says, I didn't get his name. Kid, what's your name? And he's like, my name's Drakon. As it is Natsu, but she only knows Drakon. As, by the way, Wendy isn't going to recognize him straight away. Like, she's going to recognize him, but not for that boy that they met, just because of the fact that now he has black tips, and he's a lot older. And then the guy, Egil, is like, he has business with the master. As the master of this guild comes out and says, who has business with me now? As Natsu runs over to the guy and says, me, sir. I'm looking for someone here, and I'll explain why, but can we talk in private? You can have someone come with you, I just want to talk in private because you'll see why. As the guildmaster's like, yes, we may talk in private, as he waves Natsu to come this way, as they walk into a room, and he had Egil come with them, like, the guildmaster had Egil come with him. As Natsu sits down on the couch that the man wanted him to sit on, and the man's like, so, what business do you have with me in my guild? And Natsu, he just gets a serious face and a serious tone. He goes, well, there's big trouble. As Egil knows, I'm from the Fairy Tale Guild, and lifts up his sleeve to show the Fairy Tale emblem. As the man's like, Fairy Tale, huh? So, what's the bad news? That you have to come all the way here from Fairy Tale to talk to me. As he says, well, by the way, I'm just gonna call this thing arachnophobia. No, let's just call it, we'll call it giant, okay? Because I'm pretty sure when it came out of that flute, it was a giant, so let's call it giant. I can't remember the name. If someone wants to tell me the name, I would like to know, because I looked it up earlier and I still couldn't find it. But yeah. As he tells them about the flute and everything, they're shocked, as the Grandmaster knows what it is, and he's like, boy, Are you lying to us, or are you being serious? As Natsu says, no, I'm being serious. I was sent here by my master himself, Makarov. As the master of this guild looks at him and says, "You have any proof that you were actually in Fairy Tale other than that emblem?" As he goes, "Yeah, I have proof. You hear of the Dragon Slayer in Fairy Tale? The Iron and Fire?" He's like, "Yes, I know. I've heard of him. Me and Makarov have talked a few times, and he told me about this Dragon Slayer. I was intrigued because we have one of our own." As as Natsu says, "Well, I'm him. I'm the Iron and Fire Dragon Slayer." As he starts using his Fire and Iron Dragon Slayer magic, and that's a proof enough for the Grandmaster. So he's like, "Okay, I believe you, but question is, why are you here telling me this? What do you need?" Because Egil here tells me that you're here to find a girl, but you weren't told her identity or her name. "Oh yeah, that's right. I'm here to find a girl. I don't know her name, I don't know her face, but I do know her magic, and it shouldn't be that hard to find considering it's unique." As the Grandmaster lifts an eyebrow and says, "One of my unique ones, huh?" As he says, "Yes, if you want, you can have a bunch of people come with her. I just need this one person." As he says, "Okay, depends on who it is and why." And he says, "Well, I need a wind magic user. We're trying to gather as many as possible from all over the land, because it turns out that depending on the flute's symbol is the weakness of the giant, and the symbol on the flute is a wind symbol. The reason why I'm here is for the girl that has the wind Dragon Slayer magic." As the guy, it looks at him and says, "You want one of my most precious pawns. One of my most precious, we'll say he calls them children, just like Makarov. You want one of my most precious children, huh?" And he says, "I don't want her, I just need her. If she doesn't come, then it'll be okay, but it would be really nice if we could get a wind dragon user on this, as dragon slayers are some of the strongest elements, or some of the strongest magic users of element." As the Grandmaster looks at Natsu and says, "Egil, go get Wendy." As he says Wendy, Natsu's head starts aching, and Natsu grabs his head and says, "Ow, what the?" As he's having flashes, but he doesn't know why, of a girl. He can't quite make out her face, or even her hair color or skin color. He can just tell it's a girl. Nothing more, nothing less, except she's really, really young. He's like, "What the heck was that?" As the Grandmaster goes over to him and says, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" As Natsu, he's like, "I don't know. My head just started hurting all of a sudden." As the Grandmaster is intrigued by this, because his head started hurting as soon as he said Wendy. As the Grandmaster walks away from Natsu and says, "Drakon, I'm about to say something and I want to test this, so please come over by me." As Natsu gets up and walks over by the window and he says, "What do you mean?" As Egil's now out of the room, and Grandmaster looks at Natsu and says, "I'm going to say that girl's name one more time. I want to see your reaction." As he says, "Wendy," and his head starts hurting again. He's like, "Ow! What the?" As he grabs his head, he's like, "What the heck is this?" As he's kind of getting a little bit of memory back, as he can see a blue-haired girl with, I think her eyes are blue, or I think her eyes are blue. I can't tell in this picture, but her hair's blue and her eyes are blue. And he's like, what is this? As Natsu is trying to figure this out, as the Grand Master says, did you see anything when I said that girl's name? As Natsu says, is about to answer as Wendy and Egil walk right back into the room, as the Grand Master tells Natsu, finish this discussion later. As Natsu looks over at Egil and then at Wendy, as Natsu collapses from pain on his forehead, as he is in serious pain, as he starts like screaming, like yelling, what? My head! As the Grand Master runs over to him and says, Wendy, get over here! As Wendy runs over, and she knows exactly what to do. She uses some of her wind magic to put him to sleep, as they lift him up and put him on the couch. As the Grand Master gets up and says, after putting him on the couch, and he gets up and says, Wendy, do you recognize this boy at all? As Wendy's like, why do you ask? When I said your name the first time in here, she started getting a headache. So when Eggy left the room, I tested something, and I said just your name, and he started having the pain again. And as soon as he looked at you, his head started hurting even more. As Wendy looks at him closely and says, well, he does look familiar, but I'm not sure from where. I'm not sure, Master. I recognize him, but I'm not sure. As the Master says, okay. Well, Wendy, I gotta inform you of something. As he tells her about what's going on, she's like, what? Why am I going? I understand that I'm a wind user, but wouldn't I just hold everyone back? As Wendy thinks she's weak, even though she is a bad ASS, a bad but the other word, I would say it, but the thing is, I'd rather not, because I'd rather not get in trouble, but Master's like, listen, Wendy, the boy even said it himself. He's correct when he said that Dragon Slayers have more control over the element they're given than any other person with the same element. As Wendy says, how do you know this? I mean, how does he know this? I mean, you kept the secret of me being a Dragon Slayer a secret, as Egil already knows. And Grandmaster says he's the Fire and Iron Dragon Slayer of Fairy Tale. As this shocks Wendy, and she says, Iron and Fire? I've never heard of a Dragon Slayer having two abilities. I've never even heard of another Dragon Slayer. As she gets closer to him and says, what? And she's like trying to figure out like what's going on. As she gets right up in his face, looking at his face, saying, where have I seen him before? As Natsu wakes up in a cold sweat because of what happened and accidentally knocks Wendy right in the head, as Wendy grabs her head and says, ow, that hurt! As the Grand Master says, calm down, it's just a headbutt. As Grand Master walks over to Natsu and says, you're finally awake, Drakon. As Natsu's like, what? As he grabs his head and he's like, yeah, what happened? As the Grand Master explains what happened, and he's like, as he thinks, he's like, got some of my memories back. As the Grand Master's like, what do you mean you got some of your memories back? When I was a kid, smaller than I am now, I woke up in a lake and swam out of it. That's the last thing I remember. But now I can remember a little bit more. But it's not clear. I can just remember a man with blue hair and a mark on his face. and a girl that looked exactly like Wendy over there. As he grabs his head, he's like, but I can't make out anything else. As he does see the dragon, the fire dragon, he's like, oh wait, I can also see the fire dragon that gave me the fire abilities now. As everyone is shocked in the room, he's like, you lost your memories? He's like, yeah, I don't know how or when, but, I mean, I don't know how, but, I was about, like, 8 or 9, or 7, I don't know, maybe younger than that. Excuse me, give me a sec. And he stands up and almost collapses as Wendy runs over and grabs him and, you know, uses herself as a crutch for him. As he says, whatever, I gotta get going. So is Wendy coming with me? And anywhere else? As the Grand Master says, listen, you need to take it easy. I'll let you go, but just take it easy on the road. Yes, and yes, she is coming with you along with Agil and a few other guild mates that I want to go. I'll also give you another wind user that we have here. She isn't a dragon slayer like Wendy, but she's still a wind user nonetheless. As he shakes his head and says, thanks. As Natsu takes his arm from around from Wendy, after Wendy was trying to hold him up, and she says, I'm fine. And Wendy looks at him and says, so, you know me? And she's like, maybe? I see a girl that looks somewhat like you, but she's really, really young, like 5, 6, or 7, maybe 8. But I can't tell. It's a little bit blurry, so I can't even tell if it's actually you. But I think I've seen you somewhere before. As she looks at him and says, yeah, okay. As they pack up and they leave. And, do I want to end it here? I'm thinking if I want to end it here for the fact that, there's a big adventure ahead of us, because we aren't just going to time skip and get to the guild. For the fact that I'm going to give Natsu some more of his memories back and let Wendy and him get closer over time as Natsu tries to figure out who he was before he lost his memories. Because I actually added the memory loss part to make it a little bit more interesting. By the way, I guess I'm gonna end it here, I guess. If anyone thinks that the memory loss thing was a good idea, can you please comment down below if you think it was or wasn't? I can't change it if you don't like it, because it's literally one of the main parts of the story, so I can't. But I will take that into consideration and try to do better next time if you don't like it. But if you do, please tell me, and if you don't, please tell me. Now, I'm gonna head on to the next, but I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one, stay safe.